Okay. Now we have Yasmin. Whew. If I can't do what I want to do, then my job is to not do what I don't want to do. Nikki Giovanni. Choices. Yasmin's sisters wanted Taco Bell. Her parents were out and the girls were screaming, so food duty fell to her at 19, the oldest of the 4 girls. Okay, fine, I'll go, she said, sighing, and finally shut them up. She would take the bus the whole way up Brooklyn's 5th Avenue, buy all that greasy food, and cart it back. Whatever. It was the summer of 2005, right after the London bus bombings, and Yasmin tied on her white hijab, as she always does, before she walked outside and waited for the B63 bus. The street smelled like an oil spill in the summer heat. A few minutes later, she was stepping onto the bus's black stairs as the vehicle chugged and burped its way slowly into Sunset Park. Ooh, that's some good figurative language. The bus was crowded in the front, so Yasmin stood in the back like a blade of grass in a forest of people, next to an elderly white couple holding on tightly to each other. Crap. As the bus continued down its route, people mounted and dismounted, and several blocks short of Taco Bell, another Muslim woman boarded. Hold on. I'll read as I am taking a stupid dog outside. All right. Sorry. The bus, let's see. The bus was crowded. So Yasmin stood in the back. Like, yeah. So here's the light. Okay. The other Muslim border. Like Yasmin, she also wore a hijab, but she had a baby slung to her chest and a blanket covering her sleeping infant. People moved out of the way as the woman walked carefully up the crowded aisle. She stopped at an empty window. What? If you have to go outside, then go outside. Go. Rainy? Oh, you don't have to go outside? You're just being a snot. In a blanket covering her sleeping infant. People moved out of the way as the woman walked carefully up the crowded aisle. She stopped at an empty window seat halfway along the bus. And a man sitting on the aisle seat stood to let her in. She sat down quietly, and the bus engine droned on. Yasmin is one of those people who finds it hard to hold her feelings in. And as the vehicle began moving, she could hear the couple beside her begin talking. "What do you think she's got under there?" the woman asked the man. "I don't know," he said. "We don't know what's under there." They continued to talk, and Yasmin turned to look at them. Are they for real? She thought. What do they think she's got under there? A bomb? She had to say something, so she broke into their conversation. "It's a baby," she said in her signature monotone. "Oh, it's a baby," she said in her signature monotone. The couple turned their faces to her. Yasmin could feel the man look through her before he spoke. "Did you see it?" he asked. "It's a baby," she repeated. This can't be happening, she thought. "But did you see it?" "Oh my God, I can't believe these people," she was thinking. She wanted to roll her eyes at the man, but before she could say anything, the couple had already pushed their way up to the driver, a young African-American man in a pressed polyester uniform. She could hear them command the driver to do something. "You've got to check what she has under there," the man told the driver. Yasmin glanced into the driver's mirror and saw his face looking back indifferently into the bus. "It's a baby," he said. "But did you see it? Did you see that it was a baby?" New passengers began boarding the bus at the stop. They could hear the conversation rise in tension and volume between the driver and the couple. The words terrorist and bomb floated through the bus. "Look, it's your job to check," the man yelled at the driver, his wife egging him on. "It's your job to check," he repeated. "Otherwise, we're calling the police." Yasmin looked down the bus at the Muslim woman. Her heart crashed for her, but she also began feeling uneasy in her stomach. "After her, it's me," she thought. The driver sighed. Yasmin watched him in the mirror as he rolled his eyes and put the vehicle in park. He stood up, walked down the aisle, and stopped in front of the woman, looking at her without saying anything. "It's a baby," he yelled across the bus to the man. "But did you see the baby?" the man yelled back. Everybody in the bus was watching. No one said anything. The driver turned back to the woman, and she spoke before he had to. "Do you want to see him?" she asked quietly. She pulled back the blanket, revealing a little baby boy lost in the innocence of sleep. The driver was shaking his head as he sat down again, but the couple didn't notice. Yasmin did, and she saw the couple move to 2 free seats at the rear of the bus, where they sat down, pulled out their newspapers, and began reading it like it was Sunday brunch. She was furious. How could they act as if nothing had happened? They just targeted a mother, she thought, and now they simply sat there, self-satisfied, bland, and all puffed up like a plate of rice. She was sure the mother was hurt by the incident, because if it had been her, she would feel humiliated and upset. It wasn't right. The Taco Bell flew by the window. Yasmin slammed the stop requested tape and got off the bus, angry with herself for not doing anything. As the bus pulled away from the curb, she stood there, frozen in a cloud of diesel exhaust. She grabbed for a pen, and scrawled the bus's license plate on her hand. 911, what's your emergency? There's a white couple on a city bus. I think she has a bomb in her purse. It's a B63 bus going up 5th Avenue. The license plate is... She wanted a call. That would have been pretty funny. She really did, just to make a point, to make them feel the same way, singled out, powerless, discriminated against, a source of irrational fear. But she didn't call. In fact, she didn't do anything. And because of that, she was annoyed with herself. Well, the problem is if you call that somebody has a bomb, like you could get in big trouble if it's a lie. So don't do that, Ada. Yasmin is a heavyweight fighter stuffed into a tiny 95-pound frame. Like so many other women who wear the hijab in the United States, she is far from the stereotype of the submissive and retreating female. According to popular perception, the hijab is the paramount sign of oppression, a small piece of cloth that holds the talismanic power to destroy Western civilization. It covers and silences, keeping women relegated to second-class status. Most people who believe this, however, have probably not encountered many of the women in the West who choose to wear the hijab. Far from seeking pity, they are instead often the strongest people in the room, and not by any divine decree. Because their headwear so often attracts attention, the women are frequently called upon to define and defend themselves in front of others. It can take a certain amount of courage to sport a hijab in the United States today. Courage that is not lacking in Yasmin, nor is she a stranger to a good fight. As a high school student, she found that her religious beliefs brought her into a long conflict with the school's establishment, a battle that began in September 2000 and ended only years later, thanks to a little help from Michelle Pfeiffer. Put my phone down here. It's kind of irritating me. There we go. Michelle Pfeiffer. She's a movie star from back when I was younger. Yasmin was born in Brooklyn and attended 2 private Muslim girls' schools in New Jersey until 7th grade. She had been covering her hair since she was 5 years old, when it was an optional part of her school uniform. and says she could never now imagine not doing so. I would feel like I'm walking around naked, she says. She has always lived the life of a religious Muslim, praying 5 times a day, fasting during the month of Ramadan, and is abstaining from dating, alcohol, and pork. Once, when we were setting up a place to meet, she wrote me an email suggesting we go to a Midtown Manhattan eatery she frequents. It's owned by Moroccans, she explained, and the bacon they served is made from turkey meat. We can sit by the window munching down on what appears to be pork, LOL. She wrote, Ismail, her father, is an Egyptian Muslim who married Jeanette, a Filipina Catholic, after they met in the 1980s through a mutual friend in New York. Their union gives Yasmin her unique looks, a sandy complexion, puffy lips, and black currants for eyes. Her aunts on her mother's side have Bibles and crosses all over their houses, but her mother converted to Islam when Yasmin was a small girl. Her parents are both professionals, and when their girls began growing up and the parents' jobs began swallowing too much time, they made a decision that one of them would remain at home. Ismail, who had also been a teacher, said he would stay, and he started up a small business that he could run from his house while he looked after the welfare and schooling of his 4 daughters. Like many immigrant parents, they believe that nothing is more important for their children than a good education. In private school, Yasmin learned Arabic and the fundamentals of Islam, along with a basic curriculum, but her parents felt that the public schools offered better quality schooling at the junior high and high school levels. Her father didn't want to disadvantage Yasmin's chances for medical school, his dream for his daughter. He enrolled Yasmin at McKinley Junior High School in Brooklyn. And 2 years later, she entered Fort Hamilton High School. Fort Hamilton is in an August, that means strong, upbeat, residential area of Bay Bridge, Brooklyn, that sits high on a cliff overlooking the New York Harbor. Immediately below is Shore Parkway, a constantly busy stretch of highway curving around South Brooklyn. But Fort Hamilton is perched high enough away from the road that the traffic noise immediately below isn't a bother. The homes here are large and Victorian, many more than a century old, and they continue for several tree-abundant blocks in all directions. In Fort Hamilton, everything is quiet and serene. People generally keep to themselves, waving a hello when they pick up their morning mail. The area feels much less gritty and metropolitan than most of Brooklyn, and more like some densely populated coastal town. The high school in Fort Hamilton could pass for an expensive red brick antebellum mansion. It has a soaring tower toppled with a cupola, unobstructed harbor views in the front, a full-length swimming pool inside, a well-maintained athletic field behind, and handball courts nearby. The school is also close to a historic military installation that is still in use, the actual Fort Hamilton, built in 1825 to protect the coast from invaders. Now, in this newcomer neighborhood composed of large Greek, Arab, and Italian populations, many of the residents' children and others from beyond the immediate area attend the high school, one of New York City's largest. In the beginning of her freshman year at Fort Hamilton, Yasmin tried out for the swim team. To get to the swimming pool, she had to pass by a room where 2 of her friends were always busy in some kind of group activity. Yasmin wondered what the room was. She eventually discovered that it was the classroom of the leadership program, which contained the student government offices. Leadership was a required class for student officers and an elective class for those interested in student government. Oh, that sounds kind of cool, she thought. How do I become part of it? In the spring, the next round of student elections was announced on the school's PA system, and Yasmin mulled it over. That voice in her head told her, I probably don't have a chance of winning. Kate, you need to lay down and go to bed. She's wandering around up there. She is up. She is being evil up there. Oh, my phone's getting low on battery. I have to go back over. All right, just a second. Finish this little part. Let's see. How do I become a part of it? Let's see. I have no chance of winning because no one is going to elect a girl who covers her hair. But she ignored her own misgivings, challenging herself as she frequently does. She picked up the application and looked over the documents. The whole process was astonishingly bureaucratized. Like bureaucracy is like all the little hoops you have to jump through to do something. A lesson in institutional democracy. You had to sign the application and get a parent's signature. You needed to provide a host of things: a photocopy of your school ID, a written recommendation from a teacher, copy of your transcript, and other supplementary items. You had to have earned an 80% or higher grade point average. You could not have failed a class or have had any type of school infraction, and you needed 100 signatures in blue ink from your fellow students. All applications also had to be vetted and approved by the election committee, so any irregularity risked voiding your electoral dreams. And since Fort Hamilton was known for having a strong leadership program, the school had previously sent a student to serve on the New York City Board of Education. Yasmin expected that it would be a tough and selective process. At other schools, leadership was just a class where you went, sat, and ate, she told me. At Fort Hamilton, she said, leadership was hardcore. Next came deciding what to run for. The presidency was too high an aspiration for a freshman, she judged. So, instead, she aimed for secretary. It was a Goldilocks decision for her. Not too high and not too low. Just right, she said. She collected her documents and began thinking about her campaign speech. At the bottom of the application was a statement that read, I hereby certify that these signatures were obtained justly, honestly, and in a manner outlined by the election committee. To the best of my knowledge, all of the above signed are currently Fort Hamilton High School students. I understand that if it is found that these signatures were obtained in a dishonest manner, I will be disqualified from running in this or any other student organization election. She gathered the required signatures and had her father sign the form in blue ink.